Oh, and look at the bird. Now, so what are we going to talk about?
What's important to you about birth? You know, it started with you teaching about birth positions and donor trainings.
But also, I was teaching about the emotional impact of the birth experience.
And the importance of peer support. The importance of how we talk to people giving birth. You brought in, you know, what might be called today nonviolent communication. You know, listening to needs and not interpreting.
And my slogan, she has very good reason for being this way or feeling this way or saying these things or doing these things.
Yeah, and that takes our interpretation and judgment away and makes us better listeners. And thinking, what's the need behind these words or this behavior?
And it enables us to be kind when otherwise we'd be frustrated or upset.
Yeah. Because we get frustrated or upset because we're interpreting something where we're trying to meet two needs. This person has a need and then we have a need. We want it to be efficient. We want to be a good doula. We want to have the baby in the right time frame.
And there's a right way and a wrong way to do things.
Yeah. We have to unravel that. Is that really true? Unravel that and let this person come forth.
Yeah. It isn't true. That's my take on it.
And you're right.
By golly. Oh, gosh. You know, one of my things is she's going to remember it for the rest of her life. And let's make it a good memory.
Yeah.
That I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. Because often, like the woman that was just having a breech baby, I don't know if anyone had it in the back of their mind how this is going to impact her for the rest of her life, but we have to have that knowledge somewhere. And people did because they were so kind to her and so unflapped by anything. So her sounds and things did not bother anybody or worry anybody.
And then you mentioned how her voice was after the birth, how she talked to her baby, you remember?
Yeah. And she's so soothing and loving and...
Yeah, she sounded so happy and calming.
Well, one thing I could talk about is that being with you, I'm recognizing how much we still do not know and that you're shedding a lot of light on this stuff. But you're still creating new knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the knowledge is there, but people aren't recognizing how the dots connect or what is the pattern. People didn't know that about, you know, the diameters of the pelvis or the fetal rotation, how to match them with birth positions. So we do our birth position choices. Of course, the person giving birth does it by either instinct or self-protection, trying to freeze or trying to flee, fight or flight or freeze, then that interrupts our instincts. So we can't always leave it to that because we've created a stressful birth environment. Now this person has to give birth within that stress we've created as a society or as a birth team. So we can't count on instinct alone today because it's been interrupted from childhood. People aren't able to follow their instincts. They have to sit in the chair and do their studies. So I systemized how do we open the diameter? Here, they haven't systemized it. So now, yes, it's a little bit formulaic, but we can help resolve persistent posterior, deep transverse arrest, asyncliticism, shoulder dystocia, entrapped breech head, trapped arms, all that by how we're taking away the randomness of the birth position and doing some things intentionally. We can get another centimeter. We can nutate the symphysis. We can move an ischial spine. We can move the sacrum, etc., etc.
You're amazing.
And then rotate the baby if we need to. Manually, sometimes in breech. Or shoulders.
And we haven't known that.
It's actually all there in the literature, but people just didn't connect the dots. I don't know why. In 500 years, nobody connected the dots.
Yeah. And do you think some of the indigenous midwives knew that sort of thing way back?
They knew certain things, of course. They knew a whole nother set, but they didn't also systemize it. Of course, there's midwives here and there that were more spatial, more understanding, and everybody who's practiced a long time has their favorite birth position that works most of the time. But they don't always know why it works,
Mm-hmm.
and they certainly don't know why it's not working when they apply it to a situation where the baby is not in that part of the pelvis. And Lamaze is a great organization. I love Lamaze. But they recommend squats and lunges to start labor, where squats and lunges open the bottom of the pelvis. And to get labor going, we want to open the top. So there you go.
Well, you need to explain that a little bit more.
Okay, how should I go about that?
Okay, so lunges. Now I'm of the mind, we'll put that in quotes, that I need to open up that pelvis.
Yeah,
And so
we know squatting makes the pelvis bigger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So,
But not the whole pelvis.
and when I teach someone to squat, I don't allow them to lean back on something and squat.
Why not?
I want them to flex forward and squat
Why?
to put pressure from the upper abdomen on the fundus. Now, I don't know if that's good or not, but that's sort of been my assumption.
I love you, Penny.
I think that's it. She's saying, you poor thing.
Penny talks scale. No, but I mean, yes, squatting will get better, and you can squat vertically and still get more downward pressure. That's proven.
And when you say squat vertically, feet down and squatting all the way down.
Yeah, you can have a straight back. So you can squat on the wall. You can squat in the middle of the floor. Squatting on the flat feet is better. But if you squat up on your toes, you're not doing a squat, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And now we tuck the tailbone under to open the top of the pelvis, and we aim the tailbone out in the same way that if you're peeing in the woods, you want to avoid peeing on your shoes. You flip your tailbone back, and everybody
that's
knows
why
how
I've
to
always
pee
had
outdoors.
wet shoes. I never learned that.
You never learned that.
No.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
I should have taken you camping. But people understand that in squat. Most people understand that squat.
Some, yeah.
And that squat opens the lower part of the pelvis. So when we see the baby's head, bring the tailbone back. But when we're trying to help baby engage, bring the tailbone under.
So as a midwife, when you're assisting, do you ask people to make that kind of a...
I do.
Shift.
In fact, I did last night with a breech baby who was trying to engage, and labor was going on. Dun, dun, dun. The mother was getting a little bit like, I'm getting really tired. And she was rubbing her hips. So I knew the baby was high. There was no signs that the baby was low. And you could tell from the contraction pattern and where was she touching her body afterwards to move the stagnation out. You know, the blood pooling. She wanted to move it out of her hips. So I recommended tucking the tailbone in, maybe lifting the belly, and a little bit of a knee bend, not much.
You've got to show me what you mean by tucking the tailbone in.
So we have this lumbar,
Yeah.
and we want to flatten it. And now I've moved the sacral promontory.
Yep.
Yeah,
Into a pelvic tilt. So
yeah, that's a posterior pelvic tilt. Now, for when the baby's low, you can't see it on me because I've got this 63-year-old hiney. But you stick your tailbone out.
And then that little curvature.
Yeah, there's a little bit curvature.
Yeah.
So to help a baby engage, flatten that. And for 3 contractions, the baby dropped down. That's all it took, 3 contractions. She was like, whoa, there's a strong contraction. I'm going to lay down. take a break. So she lay down, took a break for a while. Contractions went away for a while.
And she must have felt so much confidence that she was totally in tune with her body, and with your help. You know, she
I
was
hope
free.
so.
She was free to tune in, because for a lot of people it would be scary to, to tilt your pelvis kind of in opposite. Yeah, it might hurt more or something, or you might dread
right.
it.
It changes. So you feel that
Yeah.
pressure high out at the hips, up in the middle back, maybe on the pubic bone, but not in this case. And then you tuck your tailbone in, and now the pressure goes down onto your cervix. So in a breech, the hips engage. In a head-down baby, the baby comes down and applies to the cervix.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that labor is going to progress once the baby's applied to the cervix. Right? That just means symmetrical on the cervix. And that's down around 0 station. And in this case, once the baby engaged, contractions spread out, she could lay down and take a rest. But when she got up again, they were right there in active labor.
Now tell me something. How often would you do a vaginal exam when you've got a problem like that, or a question like
What's
that?
the problem? What problem?
Well, not knowing where the pelvis is and where the...
last night
where the
she
head
had
is.
her... So she had about an 8-pound... it's 3,800 gram breech baby with no vaginal exam. Why did we do no vaginal exam? Well, her water was broke, but a breech baby could startle, so we don't like to do that. Do they startle? They can sometimes. And then at each stage of our questioning, or at each time we had a question, we could assess different things. What was her movement pattern? What was her release in her body? What positions was she doing? Where was she feeling? And what was the timing and the length of the contractions? Some of these contractions were like 20 seconds long. Now, you in the hospital setting, they wouldn't tolerate that for a few hours. So then when it got time to answer the question, where's baby? I assessed these things, and I saw that we had a pattern that showed the baby was high. And so I asked her to do a technique for 3 contractions that would bring the baby deeper into the pelvis. Now, if she were to do that, and I still saw, and adequately really make the room, and I still saw that the pattern didn't match the length of labor or the strength of labor, then I would consider a vaginal exam. But we didn't need to, because we saw the external signs. We did a position change to respond to the external signs, and then we saw progress. And we did that. And I that's I guess that's the way I do it, because I do that in birth after birth. But I will do a vaginal exam if things don't match. We have confusing signals, or there's a politically tense situation and I have to know her VBAC, I might want to know a baseline. But once the water's broke, I don't want to do it. Does that answer your question?
Well, I couldn't... if you asked that question of me, I wouldn't be able to repeat the answer. If that's what
Well,
you
I
mean,
guess
but-
we assess
yeah.
by other signs besides the cervix.
Yeah.
And then we match a position to address the needs that the body is telling us.
And how often do you do fetal checks?
With a breech, frequently.
Frequently.
Yeah, the VBAC or breech, twins, we're gonna listen more than I would have in the typical home birth midwife ideology of the 80s and 90s where I come from. I would check frequently, because the breech or the twins sometimes have other needs that aren't identified, and that's why they're breech. And so you don't
Good
know.
point.
10% of breeches have some special needs, and they might be very minor special need or a neurological difference. It might be so minor you can't see it, but exam might reveal it. 90% totally healthy. So pay attention, because you don't know.
Do you ever feel anxious when you go to a birth, say like a breech birth or something that's...
I have done. I helped a woman whose pelvis was quite tipped. Her midwife invited me to meet with them. It was a VBAC. And the mother was, very determined to have a vaginal birth and then the baby's breech. And so the midwife didn't have a lot of experience, so she invited me. I noticed that her tailbone went one way, the wrinkle in her crease on her buttocks went the opposite way.
Ooh.
The hips were a little off. This can be a cause for breech birth. So I suggest we did a little body work.
So what do you think was causing it? I mean,
The twist in the pelvis.
Oh, okay.
So we did some body work, and I recommended body work. And I said this could impact the birth. And the midwife's response was, well, if you're not comfortable, we'll find somebody else.
Oh.
And I had a 10-day window that I was going to be in town for that birth. And her labor started in that window. And so I went, and we did Carol Phillips sideline release. She had started labor in a panic because it hurt more. It was VBAC, so she hadn't felt labor. Baby hit the pelvic floor. She hit the ceiling. We did this sideline release technique to balance the pelvis a little better.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do the same as a long-term chiropractic protocol, but it helps for the moment, and it puts people into their parasympathetics. And she went from probably 4, because I did do an exam in that case, and she was about 4 centimeters, and the baby was coming into the pelvis. And afterwards, she stood up and hung onto her husband's neck and just looked glowing and calm.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. She was totally in her body, and she pushed out her baby, but the baby did get caught in 3 different ways on the way out. Its arm went, because the symphysis pubis was way out of line. It was supposed to be like this, and it went like this. And the arm and shoulder went through the gap in the front of her pelvis and got stuck, and now the baby couldn't come further. So I tried the usual maneuvers. They didn't work. So what do you do when the usual things don't work? You don't keep trying the same thing. You go get the baby. So I reached in and found the baby outside the pelvis. That's something to think about.
Oh.
And brought the arm over the chest and let that shoulder come back, adducted the shoulder. The baby dropped down, and then the chin got stuck on the crooked tailbone because the tailbone went totally horizontal.
Oh.
And then I went, oh, you don't belong there, and tipped the chin. The face came down. Then I turned it back underneath the tailbone so the baby could come out. So you just navigate the space available.
Well, you seem to have eyes within the womb. I don't know if that's something people can cultivate.
Yes, because what you see on the outside tells you what's going on the inside. And you have to, I always say, know the pelvis like you know your sock drawer at midnight. So if you're a midwife and you're going out to a birth and you don't want to wake up your partner, you leave the light off and you reach into your sock drawer and you know where your underwear are and where your good fuzzy socks are. And you get those and you go put them on in the other room, right?
Now, I don't see how that applies to the fetus.
Because well, because if you have to reach into the pelvis, you have to know, here's the symphysis,
This
here's
is
the
sock.
sacrum, here's the sock, and here's the underwear, and let's get them all lined up. And
Oh my gosh. I just think your brain is amazing. You just got such a great, it seems like a great understanding. And, I can admire it, but I can't absorb it.
well, you know, what I ask the midwives to do is take a plastic pelvis that articulates and a doll that has a longer front to back head that can fit through the pelvis, but not too easily, because a lot of the mannequins, you can do the techniques wrong and get the baby out, and then you haven't learned anything.
Yeah. So you have to get some difficult uteruses.
We make a foam pelvis, and we cut it in a way that it's really heavy foam. You have to turn the head in the way the baby's head would rotate in the pelvis, or it won't come through
So
the
you
foam.
do that during workshops? Is
Yeah,
that
I have
what you're
done.
talking about?
Yeah,
Wow.
you can't make them work for it.
You're cruel. Make it easy.
I learned from the best.
Oh, I'm cruel, huh? Darn it.
You made me stop talking in your workshop.
I did? Did I really?
I talked too much. Well, you did it very gently. You said, Gail, give others a turn. I get so excited, you know.
Well, you take that sort of thing in stride very nicely. I
yeah.
probably did not want to do that to you.
Oh, you had to know. I was just so excited to be with you in a workshop.
Oh, gosh.
I went to 3 of your doula trainings.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I took the doula training 3 times for
3
you
times.
just so I could. Because you always said something different.
Yeah, I'm making it up as I go.
And every lecture, and I, you know, you've heard me say this before. You would give a rhetorical question, and I would go study that for years.
And get the answers.
Yeah, you'd say, "What about the 7-centimeter stall?" Now somebody has to figure out asynclitism. What do we need to know about persistent posterior? You know, and I would go and tune into those babies.
Boy, oh boy, you're a star student.
Oh,
No, don't
thank
give me
you.
that credit. Boy, oh boy, you.
Well, you're a very inspiring teacher.
Well, I'm
You've
glad I am.
inspired
If I inspired
thousands
you.
and thousands of people.
No.
And everywhere I go, when your name comes up, people get teary, and they say, and they tell the story of how they spent time with you. I was with Penny in this situation. I have a lovely story of my own where I was in your kitchen when Lorenzo Holt and Guadalupe Trupa sang me happy birthday and the Mexican happy birthday on my birthday in your kitchen
In my kitchen.
Seattle, and you were smiling.
Oh. Oh gosh.
Isn't that a
Those
nice?
are some nice memories.
Yeah.
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 Gosh.
Beautiful kitchen. Well, this was very sweet. Thank you, Penny.
Oh. Yeah. Thank you.
I'll be back.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know that we're hoping that book on spinning babies is going to be available.
Okay, now my teacher has spoken.
Yes, and I'm a nag too.
Oh, good. I need it.
Don't nag me about anything anymore, but
I'll show you the rough draft.
yeah, please do.